ESPN just dropped a bombshell claiming our defense has a glaring, fatal flaw that could completely derail the upcoming season. But while the national media is busy panicking over our depth chart, a cryptic social media post from a legendary superstar might just be the ultimate plot twist we never saw coming. Are we absolutely doomed in the trenches, or is a massive, landscape-altering signing already in the works right under our noses? If you want to stay ahead of every single rumor, roster move, and heart-pounding update this season, please smash that like button, share this with a fellow fanatic, and subscribe right now. Let us talk about what the so-called experts at the big sports networks are trying to feed us right now, because it is causing a lot of unnecessary anxiety in the fanbase. They recently put out this massive article breaking down the absolute weakest links on contending rosters, and for our squad, they pointed directly at the backup defensive end position. They actually think we are in deep, deep trouble the second our starters need a breather on the sideline. And look, I am not going blind to reality here. I completely understand the cold, hard math of the situation. We have an absolutely devastating starting duo. Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter are pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel for opposing quarterbacks. We are talking about two absolute monsters who combined for an earth-shattering 27 sacks last season. Putting those two on the edges is like having cheat codes activated on game day. They are game wreckers, plain and simple, and every offensive coordinator in the league loses sleep trying to block them. But here is the terrifying reality of the National Football League: edge rushers, no matter how superhuman they look on film, cannot possibly play every single defensive snap. Human bodies simply do not work that way in the trenches. Last year, Anderson was on the field for roughly 67% of the defensive snaps, while Hunter was out there for 70%. That leaves a massive, gaping 30% chunk of the game where our defense is heavily relying on the next man up. In the grueling, bone-chilling winter months of the season, when playoff seeding is on the line and every single down dictates your championship fate, that 30% is exactly where tight games are won and lost. And right now, the national media is screaming that our next man-up situation is a complete and utter disaster. But honestly, when the biggest so-called crisis on your entire roster is finding a third-string rotational pass rusher, aren't we actually sitting in a pretty unbelievable spot? Think about the immense progress this front office has made over the last few months. If we are literally pulling our hair out over who plays the final 15 snaps of a blowout game, that means the core of this team is an absolute juggernaut. Yes, the recent departures of Derek Barnett and Denico Autry left a noticeable void in the locker room. Those guys brought grit, attitude, and crucial veteran experience. And looking at who is currently stepping into those rotational shoes, I can understand a tiny bit of the skepticism from the outside looking in. We brought in Dominique Robinson through free agency, and we all know the raw numbers aren't exactly mind-blowing. He managed just 1.5 sacks in 12 games last year while playing up in Chicago. Then you have Dylan Horton, who has only scraped together half a sack over his 3 seasons with us. Add Solomon Byrd to the mix, and it definitely feels like an unproven, highly volatile rotation sitting behind our 2 established superstars. But there is one massive, glaring omission in this entire national narrative, and it is driving me completely crazy. Everyone is casually overlooking Logan Hall. Do not sleep on this man. When we talk about finding that true replacement for the absolute Swiss Army knife that was Denico Autry, Logan Hall is the exact answer staring us right in the face. This is a guy who brings unbelievable inside-out flexibility to the defensive line. You can line him up inside as a 3 technique to absolutely crush the interior, or kick him outside the tackle as a 5 technique to violently set the edge. That is exactly the kind of hybrid, tweener versatility that our specific defensive scheme aggressively demands. Let's not forget, he is still incredibly young with so much raw potential. He is only 25 years old. Yes, maybe he had a slightly down year in 2025, but let's remember the absolute force of nature he was back in 2024. Plus, this is a massive, emotional homecoming for him. He dominated locally with the Houston Cougars, and now he is back defending his home turf in front of his family and friends. I am incredibly pumped about the Logan Hall signing, and it completely baffles me that he gets totally erased from the conversation when we discuss the depth of our defensive trenches. That brings us to our official question of the day: which specific position are you secretly terrified about as we inch closer to kickoff, and who should we bring in to fix it? Let me know your absolute wildest theories down below in the comments. Now, even with my unwavering faith in Logan Hall, I am not opposed to stacking the deck. If we want to genuinely secure a championship parade, bringing in another season pass rusher on a budget-friendly deal is a brilliant, low-risk maneuver. So let's talk about some incredibly realistic names floating around out there. We don't need to mortgage our future or empty the salary cap for these guys, but they could absolutely be the final piece of the championship puzzle. First up, why not a reunion with Derek Barnett? He is still sitting out there waiting as a free agent, and the idea of him coming back on a team-friendly contract is gaining serious momentum depending on how the rest of the league values him. People constantly forget that he is only 29 years old. This is a guy who gave us back-to-back 5-sack seasons. He deeply knows the system, he even brought us electrifying return touchdowns, and he thrived after escaping Philadelphia. If he doesn't get the massive, multi-year payday he was hunting for on the open market, why wouldn't he want to run it right back with us? He is extremely comfortable with the coaching staff, he knows the locker room culture inside and out, and he can rack up highly efficient minutes behind Anderson and Hunter. A one-year prove-it deal to chase a ring and re-enter the market next year just makes far too much sense for both sides to ignore. If we decide to look outside the immediate family, the next logical, highly intriguing target has to be Leonard Floyd. He is 33 now, definitely entering the twilight years of his career, but this man has some serious, undeniable skins on the wall. Just look at his track record of absolute terror against opposing offenses. Last year in Atlanta, despite his age, he still managed to generate 19 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 11 punishing quarterback hits. That is exactly the kind of high-motor, relentless production you desperately want from a rotational guy. And let's not pretend he wasn't a premium, Tier 1 edge rusher very recently. Go back to 2024 with San Francisco, 8.5 sacks and 16 quarterback hits. The year before that in Buffalo, 10.5 sacks. The year before that in Los Angeles, 9 sacks and 22 quarterback hits. He is a battle-tested warrior who knows how to get to the quarterback in the clutch. At this stage, guys like Floyd are not looking to anchor a painful, multi-year rebuild, they are viciously hunting for a Super Bowl ring to cement their football legacy. Picture this, it is the fourth quarter of a brutal playoff game, Anderson and Hunter are completely gassed on the sideline, and we sub in a fresh, angry Leonard Floyd to chase down a scrambling quarterback on 3rd and long. Adding a hungry, veteran closer to this roster for those incredibly tense late-game situations could be an absolute masterstroke. You could say the exact same passionate things about Emmanuel Ogbah. He is another Grizzly veteran who just screams perfect rotational fit for our defensive identity. Last year was incredibly frustrating for him over with our division rivals in Jacksonville. He was battling a nasty bicep injury that completely stole 4 or 5 games from him, and you could clearly tell he was fighting through immense physical pain when he finally returned to the field. It was definitely a down year across the board. But look at the history before that divisional detour. He was routinely dropping back-to-back 5-sack seasons down in Miami. If he is fully healed and properly motivated, he doesn't need to be the primary focal point of an entire defensive game plan anymore. We just need him to come in fresh, pin his ears back, and get us 5 or 6 timely sacks over a grueling 17-game stretch. That is the very definition of elite, championship-caliber depth. But let's pause for a second and take a deep breath, because we need to talk about the absolute elephant in the room. We have spent months meticulously analyzing the free agent market. We debated the logic behind diva receivers like Stefon Diggs. We debated whether a Jadeveon Clowney reunion made any logical sense. But there is one name floating around right now that sounds so utterly ridiculous on paper that you initially want to laugh it off as pure fan fiction. I am talking about future Hall of Famer Von Miller. I know exactly what you are screaming at your screen right now. You are saying there is absolutely zero chance we land a guy with that kind of legendary resume. But listen to me closely, where there is smoke, there is usually fire. Have you seen the internet recently? Von Miller just posted a massive, highly visible photo with none other than C.J. Stroud on his personal Instagram page. You do not just casually post a picture with the face of our franchise during peak off-season rumor season unless you are trying to send a deliberate, calculated message. Remember, Von is a Texas boy through and through. He absolutely dominated at Texas A&M. He has spoken openly and passionately about his family's deep ties to the state. We all know his dad grew up a massive Dallas fan, and they always flirted with the romantic idea of him going there to finish his career. But if the team up north isn't willing to open their doors, the hottest, most explosive and exciting team in the entire state of Texas is sitting right here in our city. Could he actually be eyeing a dramatic move back to his home state to finish his legacy? Yes, it could just be an innocent social media post. Maybe it is just two elite athletes showing mutual respect at an off-season event. But the connections are becoming way too loud to completely ignore. He already has a direct line to our superstar quarterback. And just to add an extra layer of pure chaos to this entire conspiracy theory, Jadeveon Clowney himself officially liked that exact same post. The entire league is watching every move. If Von Miller is genuinely at the point in his legendary career where securing one final Super Bowl ring means vastly more to him than securing a maximum contract, we are undeniably the most attractive destination in the entire NFL. Bringing in a football genius like Von Miller to serve as our third edge rusher, strictly to terrorize left tackles on pure passing downs, while mentoring Will Anderson Jr. on the sidelines, would be the single most devastating roster move of the entire offseason. If he is willing to swallow his pride and accept a team-friendly, heavily discounted deal to chase football immortality, this front office needs to make that phone call yesterday. This offseason is heating up in ways we never thought possible, and the defensive trenches are about to become the most fascinating storyline of the summer. Do not move a single muscle today, because I am going completely live in just a couple of hours to break down every single late-breaking rumor as it happens. Get ready for an absolute roller coaster of a season.